We were known as the Three Musketeers plus one: me, Ryan, Jack, and Bobby. Lainey was number 1+1 and later became my wife. Our gang came about through coincidence. Our families lived in the same neighborhood. We were the same age and went to school in the same grade. Everything we did, good or bad, we did together. As kids, we played doctor and got to know the body parts of the opposite sex by exploring each other. Our explorations were limited to brief touches because our parents threatened eternal damnation if we had premarital sex. When we dated girls in high school, we compared impressions of our accomplishments, except when we dated Lainey. Of course, we lied about our successes. We were known as practical jokers. Just a few examples. The principal's car was covered in toilet paper. Our old algebra teacher, a hag, was superglued to her chair. At graduation, we snuck into the school ahead of time and built a 6-foot-high wall of concrete blocks in the main school hallway. This last prank almost prevented me from graduating from high school, as I was the only one with construction skills. Too many examples for a short story to cite. Jack and Bobby went off to college. Lainey went to beauty school, and I went to a trade school for drafting and construction. I wanted to work with my dad in the construction business. He was the foreman of the owner's crew, Ben Stone. His duties were to evaluate potential jobs, prepare bids, and make sure the right materials were delivered to the sites on time. If a project was behind schedule, he stepped in wherever necessary. It was a job I wanted to eventually take over. I just didn't realize it would be so soon. My father died in a workplace accident about 2 years after I started working with him. My mom left me for another man years ago. I was left to fend for myself and was used to taking care of my own needs and the house. Mr. Stone called me and asked if I would take the foreman's job. But I was not sure and could not make up my mind, thinking myself too inexperienced. I doubted whether the brigade would follow my instructions. Mr. Stone said that he and Master Max had discussed it and that they trusted me. He said he felt my loyalty and was sure that by talking to the crew he could convince them to let me try it. Fortunately, the guys gave me some leeway until I got the hang of it. As for 3+1, we knew it was likely that one of us would marry Lainey. It just so happened to be me. She graduated from beauty school and started working at her aunt's salon. The fact that there were only 2 of the 3+1s in town made our marriage almost inevitable. Jack dropped out of college and came back to town a few years later. I found him a job on our construction crew. Bobby got injured playing soccer and dropped out of college when he was told he could never play again. He came back shortly after Jack and found a decent job in a factory. Both soon found girlfriends with whom they began serious relationships. Neither one was from around here. Soon our old company was revived and Bobby and Jack's wives joined in. They were told of our mischief and were soon persuaded to take part in our merrymaking, though they were not very enthusiastic about it. After a few years of mischief together, I matured. My version of the reason I became less inclined to fool around, while the others continued to do so. The final summation of all this was summed up by our trip to the Bahamas together. The resort we arrived at had a nudist beach. Lainey, Jack, and Bobby got us sufficient alcohol and whipped us up until we, all 6 of us, were naked. Everyone noted how our bodies had changed over the years. Jack and Bobby's wives were very embarrassed at first, as they had not been participants in our past sexual explorations. But once they saw the ease with which we approached it, they relaxed. I can't say that this scene had no effect on us at all. All of us guys got and kept getting involuntary erections the whole time because it was the first time we had seen our new wives in the flesh, and it had been a long time since they had seen a naked Lainey. Her body had changed, especially the size of her breasts. It seemed to me that Lainey, Jack, and Bobby had lustful expressions in their gazes, and the teasing we usually exchanged seemed to take on a whole different meaning when we were all naked. Jack and Bobby's wives refused to get involved except to take off their swimsuits. That evening at dinner, Lainey, Jack, and Bobby exchanged sexual innuendos at every opportunity. I told them, "One of these days you're all going to get so drunk, or you'll be stupid enough to go so far that our friendship will be ruined, if not completely destroyed." My comment was rejected by all 3. However, when my gaze fell on Lainey, I saw a different reaction. Having known her most of her life, and being a good poker player, I saw some kind of idea forming in her head. She was going to use my warning about the dangers of nude pampering to pull a new prank. I had a pretty good idea of what it would probably turn into. It was Friday night, and a couple weeks later, I was sent a video. It showed Lainey sleeping with Jack while Bobby takes her from behind. Then they switch places. The video looked edited and didn't last very long. At the end of the video, they begged me to join them next time. Jack and Bobby promised that their wives would get in on it too. Later that Friday night, Lainey, Jack, and Bobby had a long laugh about what they assumed Ryan's reaction would be. As soon as Lainey received confirmation that her husband had reviewed the email and the attached video, she and the guys headed to her and Ryan's house. They could barely contain their laughter. Lainey was happy to see Ryan's car still parked in the driveway. Good thing he hadn't done anything stupid like go get drunk. They opened the door, still giggling at what they thought was the best joke of their lives. Opening the door, Lainey started calling out for Ryan. "Ryan, we're home! We have another video we want to show you. Come on out! Don't be such a pain in the ass." No response. "He's probably sulking somewhere. I'll go find him." Lainey looked around but didn't see anything unusual. She entered his office and noticed his laptop was missing. Their safe was open. All the money was gone along with Ryan's passport. "Oh, shit!" She ran upstairs screaming Ryan's name. Ryan's toiletries and some of his summer clothes were gone too. On his dressing table was a note and his wedding ring. The note said, "Now you guys can have each other all you want." Lainey went downstairs and told Jack and Bobby about it. They grimaced, but then Bobby laughed. "That asshole figured it out. Now he's played a joke on us." All three of them laughed amicably. They were sure he had. Jack offered to send another video just in case, showing how the action was staged in the first video. Although doubts were once again swarming in the minds of the trio, they still found it hard to believe that something really bad could happen. Almost simultaneously, Jack and Bobby's cell phones rang. It was their wives. Their words were almost identical. "I just got a copy of the video from Ryan. Don't bother coming home. I'll see a lawyer on Monday. You're going to regret this." Jack and Bobby asked Lainey to make a copy of the second video to show their wives that it was just a joke. They then hurried home, promising to call each other and let each other know how it went. A few hours later, both reported that the second video didn't really change their wives' attitudes as much as they had hoped. The wives said they would still file the divorce papers, but would hold off until they calmed down. They wanted to talk to Ryan one more time before deciding what to do. Both husbands had to promise to stop the shenanigans. From now on, in the absence of their wives, they were forbidden to be around Lainey. Lainey sent Ryan a copy of the second video as soon as she could. In her email, as further proof that the first video was fake, she wrote, "You know I couldn't be cruel enough to actually have sex with our best friends, right?" A few hours later, she started calling relatives and co-workers to see if they had Ryan. She called his favorite bar as well, but no one had seen him or knew where he was. She waited and worried. Monday came. Jack called early Monday morning. "Lainey, Ryan didn't show up for work this morning. I asked about him at the office and was told he quit. When Mr. Stone came out of the office, he was angry. He told me that Ryan told him about the video when he quit. Mr. Stone told me that the only reason I still had a job was because Ryan's sudden departure left him without the right employee, and he couldn't afford to lose me too, at least not yet. Damn it, Lainey, you have to do something. I can't afford to lose this job." Lainey thought she was on good enough terms with Mr. Stone to talk to him in person. He was the only one who had spoken to Ryan since the first video was sent. He had a grim look on his face when Lainey walked in. "Thank you so much, Lainey. You managed to ruin my business. I hope you and the boys enjoyed your threesome." "Mr. Stone, it was a prank. We didn't actually do anything wrong. We made a second video showing how we faked the first one." Ryan reacted before he even saw the second video. "A prank? Having a threesome with your husband's best friends? You're just sick, girl, so who's laughing at this joke of yours?" "Right now, no one. We thought we could get to Ryan before he did something stupid." "Looks like you're the stupid one. Why are you here?" "When Ryan comes back, can he go back to his old job?" "If he comes back, he won't be rehired. According to company policy, anyone who quits without at least 2 weeks' notice will have a do not hire notation added to their personnel file. This morning, I added just such a note to his personnel file." But aren't there any exceptions? He was a good employee, wasn't he? He was a great employee, just like his father. The only way he could have come back is if one of the partners wanted him back. Partners? I thought you were the sole owner. I own a controlling interest. I've brought in several partners over the years to provide capital for the business. Speaking of the business, I need to get back to it. Anything else? Lainey shook her head negatively and walked away. Lainey was really worried. All weekend she had been trying to call Ryan, but the calls went to voicemail. Today she tried again and got the message, "No longer in service." Maybe he was still accepting emails, so she tried texting him. She explained that it was a joke, as he could tell from the second video. She asked what was wrong with his sense of humor. She apologized and promised that she, Jack, and Bobby would make it up to him. She tried to blame him for the problems he had caused Jack and Bobby's marriage by sending the first video. There was no response for weeks. In those days, Lainey was busy. She found that her credit cards and ATM card no longer worked. Her cell phone was unplugged. She received notices that she was now solely responsible for the mortgage and would have to pay all of her utility bills. There was no money in any of the joint accounts she and Ryan had. All she had was money sitting in her personal savings account. Then came the notice that her name had been taken out of his life insurance policy and she was no longer listed in his will. Since he had quit his job, he no longer had health insurance. That meant Lainey didn't have it either. Lainey had to strain to open a current account and apply for new cards. She was afraid she might get divorce papers, but nothing had been sent to her yet. One day after work, Lainey came home and noticed she had an incoming email. The email was from Ryan. She opened it. "Lainey, I hope you and the boys are having fun. I'm sure they are. I really fell in love with that fake video. Congratulations to you, Jack and Bobby. Too bad I automatically deleted your emails for a few weeks. The video I attached was made when I still believed your video was real. I thought about destroying it and hoping you would never find out about it. But then I remembered how cruel your joke was. Now I don't care about that anymore. I intend to proceed as if your video is true. I hope you enjoy the attached video, although I doubt you'll enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it." The video featured Ryan with two beautiful girls on a secluded beach with palm trees. They took off their tiny bikinis and showed off their perfectly tanned bodies without any tan lines. Ryan apologized that they weren't talking and said that here in Brazil they only spoke Portuguese. The girls then demonstrated that they knew how to use their gorgeous bodies. Several hot sex scenes with Ryan followed in various positions. At the end, Ryan said, "And now this is a sex tape." After the sexy part of the video ended, Ryan continued with this message. "I think by now you've realized that I took all of our money. It came to over $500,000. I was pleasantly surprised. You may have wondered why they didn't send you the divorce papers. That's for now. My plan is to notify you of the divorce as soon as my money runs out. These girls are expensive, and I've discovered that I like to gamble, so it shouldn't take too long. When I get back, I'll file for divorce, and you'll get half of nothing. Then I'll disappear and start working in construction unofficially. Lainey, I sincerely hope the so-called joke was worth it. Sorry about Jack and Bobby's wives, but it's the guy's fault as well as yours." That was the end of the video. Lainey was devastated. With only her paycheck and tips at the beauty salon as her income, she had to ask her parents for financial help. Even then, she had to change her lifestyle. She hoped that when Ryan returned, she could somehow convince him not to divorce and get their lives back in order. 2 months later, Ryan announced that he was broke and was coming home. He asked Lainey to set up a time and date to meet. He said his attorney would have the divorce papers ready by then. When he arrived, Lainey, Jack, Bobby, and their wives were already there. They were all sitting around the kitchen table. The pranksters immediately began apologizing and making promises. It took a few minutes before they fell silent and waited to see what Ryan had to say. "I caught the look in Lainey's eyes right after I warned against the danger of you all actually having sex. I was sure she was plotting a sexually explicit prank involving you. I recorded conversations in the house and on her phone. I hacked into her email account. I knew about your conspiracy from the beginning. I was busy planning my response as soon as you pulled your plot. I let your wives in on my secret." The video surprised me a little, but after our time together at the nude beach, seeing you naked in the same room wasn't a complete surprise. Your simulated sexual acts were somewhat believable. When I received the video, I immediately set about executing my plan. I arranged for you to forfeit all of my maintenance payments. I then traveled to Florida to visit my grandparents in a nursing home. Lainey, do you remember what my grandfather did for a living? Lainey thought for a second. He was a filmmaker. She seemed to be starting to realize. He thinks your video was amateurish at best. My grandfather was a pioneer in special effects video. I think they call it deepfakes. When I asked him what he thought of this video, he said that your so-called fake video was only partially fake. That was the first thing he explained to me. From the looks on Lainey and the guys' faces, Ryan realized he was right. Ryan, we're so sorry. We didn't want to do this. Once we started, everything seemed to take on a life of its own. It'll never happen again. You got your revenge by having sex with 2 girls. You did the same thing we did, so we're even. This was supposed to be a joke, don't you see? I see that my prediction came true. There's a difference between your sense of humor and having common sense. You all should have known that what you were planning was too reckless. Now on to the second thing my grandfather helped me with. After he told me about the first video, I asked him if he could do better. He even took offense at my disbelief in him. The video you saw of me having sex is how a real fake is made. Someone was having sex with those 2 girls from Florida, but it wasn't me. I thought you'd notice the difference in the bodies. It took the girls a while to find a man from their escort business, with a body build similar to mine. Then he had to gain weight in a short time to get close to my figures. Grandpa told me not to worry. Most husbands and wives usually don't pay much attention to the small details of their spouse's body unless there is a tattoo or birthmark on it. He said that removing body hair is just as helpful in hiding the truth. When I'm standing on the beach in front of a sex scene, you see another guy's body with my head on it. That was the body you thought was mine in the sex scenes. And yes, I have videotape proof, so you can't use adultery against me like I can in your case. But you took all our money and lost your job, Lainey interrupted. Nonsense. I took the money and invested it in Mr. Stone's business. He needed the capital increase to buy new equipment that would allow him to do twice as much work without hiring new staff. We'll return the money with interest as soon as possible, and as one of the partners, I can rehire myself. I can even give myself a raise. I'll get the family budget in order very quickly. Lainey smiled and exclaimed, You miserable son of a bitch! Heck, I think we deserve it. I, for one, am done with the shenanigans. I apologize to my husband and to all of you. I'm sorry. I'm just glad it's over and we're getting back to normal. Take your time. The guys' wives walked over to Ryan, sat on his lap, put their arms around his neck and kissed his cheeks. When I told the girls about your prank and my response, they wanted to get revenge. We had managed to abstain from sex until now, but after the divorce, we decided to live together. The wives and Ryan pulled out large sealed envelopes and handed them to their spouses. Shock, anger, and confusion took turns reflected on the trio's faces as they read the notice of divorce enclosed in each envelope. You see, a state of legal separation begins as of today. The girls and I are going to have a fun weekend. By the time we get back, you should have your stuff. You can find a place where your trio can continue their impractical pranks. If any of you resist divorce, we'll send the first video to everyone you know. He showed several pages of email addresses of everyone who might know anyone in the trio. After a few minutes of stunned silence, Ryan ended the meeting. Okay, girls, go home and pack your bags. Don't bother packing any pajamas. All 3 of them smirked. Now, Lainey remained seated at the kitchen table after the others left. Suddenly, she perked up. This is just a revenge prank, isn't it? Ryan thought for a moment. Do I have the right to act so cruelly now?